Are you ready? Okay.
Content over everything!
So I just want to thank Content Over Everything for kindly recording this talk. My normal cameraman JC from Soko Films is not here, and Content Over Everything has very kindly stepped in. So please like, subscribe and share, and do listen to all the adverts and click on the links because it helps with the Bentley Fund. So what I want to do is a talk on how the Christian way of life is something that is applicable in every circumstance, in every situation, in every condition and environment. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to contrast it really with Sharia law to demonstrate how this is not something that is applicable in every situation and circumstance. And thus to raise the question really about which is the most successful way of life, which way of life is the one that is a guidance for all mankind. The premise of saying that something is a guidance for all mankind assumes two things. One, that it is universally applicable at all times and at all places, and two, all people. And the other one is to say that, that it is universally accessible, that it is something that people from any kind of economic or sociological situation can engage with and adopt. And I would contend that the Christian faith, as opposed to the Islamic faith, matches both of those criteria, and I'm going to explain why in a second. And what I'm talking about is that system of revelation that leads to a kind of practice. The Christian faith is based upon the idea that the divine Logos, the Word of God, became incarnate, took on flesh and became human. And in so doing, by becoming a man and by taking on the full fragility of humanity, lived a human life, was crucified for our sins, was buried and rose again on the third day. Now, because we believe that the divine Logos became a man, we believe, therefore, that it becomes possible to tell stories of the man, like it is possible in our everyday experience to tell stories about whomever we wish to tell stories about, both truthfully and falsely. And because it is about a story, that means that what is important is not so much the words that are used, but the message that is communicated. And if that is also true, if those premises are correct, that means that that message is translatable. It is translatable, and it is not even bound to a book. In other words, you can give the message without any reference to the Bible. That's actually possible within the Christian worldview. By contrast, the authentic Muslim position is to say that the Quran is the word of Allah, that it is literally the word of Allah, that every word of it is the word of Allah, and that it exists in Arabic. Which means that authentically, from the Islamic position, it cannot be translated. So, in terms of our criteria about which of these messages is immediately accessible, the answer is the Christian message is accessible to all people, not the Islamic message. If you do a thought experiment with me, you'll see this very clearly. Let us imagine, and I'd ask you to follow along in this thought experiment, that we have a Muslim missionary and we have a Christian missionary. And they go to the pygmies that live in the Amazon jungle. They go there, each with the idea of sharing their faith with the Amazonian tribes that have lived in isolation in the Amazon. Well, each of them is sincere in our thought experiment, and each of them is desirous to make genuine converts. So what do the two missionaries do? The Christian missionary learns the language of the Amazonian people and then tells them about Christ. The Muslim missionary sets up an Arabic school and teaches them Arabic. So intrinsic within Islamic ideology is the process of Arabization, whereas Christianity is seeking to engage cultures as it finds them and only reforming those things that are not compatible with the Christian faith. So the first criteria that we said was that the message, that the words had to be accessible to all peoples. Now, for anyone who's bilingual, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that are going to watch this video and plenty of people who are listening now who are bilingual. I'm bilingual. I can speak Spanish and I can speak English. And I can tell you as someone who is bilingual that no matter how hard you study the language and no matter how well you study it, you will always be deficient in the language that is not your first language. So this Muslim argument that we simply could all go and learn Arabic is based upon an idea, idealistically, that learning a language is something that everyone can easily do. But let us imagine that you are the pygmy in the Amazon. Formal education connected to learning a second language is completely irrelevant to your life. It is completely something that is abstract to your life. What you need to know is how to hunt, how to build a shelter, how to find water, how to avoid poisonous foods, how to raise a family in that setting. So the process of Arabization, of learning Arabic, is totally irrelevant to your life. The idea that people can simply learn Arabic well enough to know what is in the Quran is something that anyone who's studied a second language knows is extremely difficult. Now, the Arabic of the Quran itself is of a classical kind of Arabic. To give an analogy in English, it would be like reading Shakespearean English. And as anyone knows who reads Shakespearean English, it doesn't exactly trip off the tongue. There are many Arabs today whom, whilst they can read the Quran, would struggle to understand it because the language of the Arabic Quran is classical Arabic. It's a difficult language even for Arabs. So this idea, okay, just the evidence. So, okay, so I've found my first heckler, but I'm going to try and press on with my presentation. I will take rebukes afterwards, and I will take questions if you can be patient enough to wait. If you can be patient enough to wait. Okay, so I'm going to press on. So I'm going to press on. So, okay, so I'm going to press on. So, when we look at the Christian faith, because it is about the message and not the words that is important, it means that it is translatable and it is communicatable in any language, whereas the Quran is not. Now, in terms of the practice of the religion, the Christian faith is an ontological faith. Something that if you go to Soko films, I've talked about a lot. Ontology is about the nature of being. It is about the nature of the inner man, how we form our soul, the content of our heart, the way and the patterns of the way that we think on a day-to-day basis. It is not a religion of ritual like Hinduism, and it is not a religion of law like Judaism and Islam. These are Islam, by contrast, is a religion of law. It has the idea that Allah gave a system of laws known as the Sharia that we then submit to and follow in our daily lives. Now, I found my second heckler. This is my second heckler. Yeah, I will have my third heckler, I'm sure, because sadly this is the conduct of the Islamic Dawah team in Speaker's Corner. They seek to impose themselves on every conversation, and they do not allow anyone to speak about anything except what they want them to speak about. But I will try to press on with my presentation. Now, Islam is a system of law. It does affect ontology as well, I'm not denying that at all. However, the problem with saying that a system of laws are universally applied is that those system of laws will have been contextualized in a certain socio-economic and political context. And that is not true for every time and for every period. Now, Christianity, by contrast, is an ethical religion. It is a religion that seeks to imbue a kind of ethic that we live by, that you live by in every circumstance of your life. And that ethic can be described summarily in this form: to do unto others as you would have done unto you. Now, what does that mean in plain English? It means that the good that you desire for yourself is the good that you seek to do to other people, and those things that you would find most hateful if they were done to you, you try to avoid doing them to others. Now, any thinking man, as I'm sure there's many thinking people here, will instantly be able to pick up on the fact that this will sometimes cause tensions. Because if I have two groups of people whom I am trying to do good to, as I would want good done to me, that in different circumstances would create contradictory tensions. So this ethic is not given in isolation. It's given within 4 categories of love. The love that we owe to God with our whole heart, mind, soul and strength. The love that we owe to our brothers and sisters in the church. The love that we owe to our family. And the love that we owe to everyone else as their needs require of us. Now, when there is that tension of doing love, doing good, treating others as we would want to be treated ourselves, whenever there is a tension that occurs, what we have to do is put it through that prism in the 4 orders. Firstly, loving God. Secondly, loving our brothers and sisters in the church. Thirdly, loving our family. And fourthly, loving everyone else.
In the church?
So just to give an example, if we have 2 people, one of whom is not a Christian, one of whom is a Christian, and their needs are equally in demand, and we have the ability only to help one, we choose the Christian. This is what I mean, is that doing good unto others isn't in a vacuum, it is within a prism that we filter it. If we have the ability to do good to both, then we do good to both. Now, and I hope that addresses your point. So, by contrast, following the Sharia law in many aspects can be followed by anyone. Anyone can prostrate themselves towards Mecca, for instance. Anyone can circumcise themselves, for instance. However, it is not possible for everyone to learn Arabic. It is not possible for everyone to keep Ramadan as Muhammad kept Ramadan. As I understand the practice of Ramadan, the marking of the fast is given by the rising and the setting of the sun and the light that allows you to tell the difference between black and white cotton to mark the beginning and the ending of the fast. So what do you do in Greenland when the sun only rises and sets twice a year? You see, a Sharia law, or any system of law, this includes communist or any other kind of legalistic system, assumes socio-economic political factors are in stasis and they don't change. Unfortunately, as you go into the northern and southern hemispheres, the circumstances change and the law can no longer apply as is written. And so what do Muslims have to do? They have to innovate. They have to make up an answer to the question, a question that Muhammad never faced. So the way that 2 schools of thought answer the question about what Muslims do in Greenland is some schools of thought say you do it by Mecca, and some schools of thought say that you do it by the nearest Muslim majority country, and you mark your fast according to those times. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize that this, therefore, is not universally applicable. Bid'ah is the second greatest sin within Islam after shirk. Shirk is ascribing partners to Allah. Bid'ah is innovating and doing that which is not in the Sunnah of Muhammad. Now, the fact of the matter is that Islam, over the centuries, has consistently had to innovate to address new circumstances. Now, that would not be a problem. It would not be a problem if it wasn't the fact that the claim of the Muslims is that the Sharia law is universally applicable. But that is what they claim, that it is applicable for all times, all people, and all places. And we've given examples of how that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Now, take the Christian position. The Christian position of doing good to others as you would want them doing good to you. Now, if you're a pygmy in the Amazon, what it means to do good to someone is going to be different if you are a barrister in London or a banker in London. It will mean different things because your circumstances are radically different. But the fact of the matter is that everyone, no matter the situation, no matter the context, can do good in that context.
So in the Islam.
And so we have a system, a way of life that is universally applicable in all times, in all places, and in all circumstances, because it is connected to a message that is universally translatable. By contrast, Islam requires you to begin the process of Arabization, learn Arabic, and follow a system of laws that cannot be universally applied. Now, I thank you all for listening patiently. I'm now ready to address rebuttals and questions. I would ask you to allow other people to speak. So I'm going to do one question from one person and then swap to another person, and I'll come back to you if you've got a second question. No, he wants to do yours first.
Between the bid'ah and masalih al-mursala. What is it between the bid'ah? Because you come in here as an Islamic scholar, is that right?
No, I've never claimed that.
So therefore, if someone is not Islamic scholar, how dare you speaking about Islam and criticize Sharia if you are not qualified to do so? For example, if I'm not qualified to speak about Christianity, is it okay for me to start criticizing it based upon my ignorance?
Shall I reply?
Say yes or no, then I'll give you something else.
Okay, it's never stopped the Islamic Dawah team before.
No. I didn't ask you to answer different questions.
You are a part of the Islamic Dawah team, sir, and it has never
question.
stopped the Islamic Dawah team criticizing Christianity, even though most of them have never even picked up a book.
Next question.
Okay.
My question to you.
This one's getting 2 questions.
So your question?
You said, as I asked you, what is the
Your
difference
question.
between the bid'ah and al-masalih al-mursala?
Okay. Can you translate the second
I'm gonna
phrase?
translate it.
Okay. So he's asked his question.
Because in order
He is
to
okay.
Islam, you have to know
He has asked his question. He's made a number of points. I'm going to reply, and then I'm going to allow this guy. So the first point that he made was, I don't have the right to speak about Islam because I'm not a scholar. Something tells me he's not a scholar either, but he's talking about Islam. Secondly, I said I doubt you're a scholar. Secondly, the Islamic Dawah team are always coming to Speaker's Corner and criticizing the Christian faith, even though none of them are scholars. So he's created a hypocritical standpoint. Now, to answer his question directly, I do not know the Arabic of the second phrase that he gave, and so I do not know the contrast. However, I would assume from the way that he based the question is that one would be a permissible form of innovation and the other one would be an impermissible form of innovation.
No, that's not right.
Okay, so he said that that's wrong. However, I said that I would take questions from other people, so now I am going to allow someone else to talk. Please note the conduct of the Islamic Dawah team. Your question.
You were telling us earlier how Christian law, he's not going to be quiet.
He's not going to be quiet. He doesn't want to respect you like you respected him. I just want to point out that the atheist who does not believe in God was more polite to the Muslim than the Muslim was to the atheist.
With morality.
I know, it's amazing. He surprises me every week. Go on, ask your question. Ask your question.
You were telling us earlier about how... Shut up,
Will you let someone else speak?
Have some respect and decency.
So basically you are saying that I'm going to allow you to
just let him finish himself off and then he'll...
No, because he'll just keep talking. Just ask your question.
You were talking earlier about the universality of Christian law, that it can be followed by everyone everywhere. Am I not right in saying, is it 3 or 4 out of the 10 commandments are solely about worshipping God?
Okay,
that's correct.
Is that your question?
No.
Go on.
But that is correct.
Yeah,
is it
carry
3
on.
or 4 of the
Yeah.
10 commandments
Yeah.
about worshipping God?
Yeah.
So where's the universality of that?
Yeah.
You happened by whatever to be born in an area where there is no knowledge of God.
Yeah.
That means you're already that's not a universal.
Okay.
Because you haven't even heard about God.
Okay.
How can you worship?
Okay, so did everyone hear the question, or do I need to repeat it? Did you hear it at the back? You did. So the answer to the question, it's a fair question, and it exposes. It is absolutely. It is a fair question. I am assuming in the whole of my presentation that someone is a Christian. So you're right to point out that it is only universal if you are a Christian. But let me just contextualize this. Let me finish. 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 No, thank you. So the point that I was using by the term universal was that it was universally communicated. I don't think you were here for the very beginning, and that it was universally applicable. But the whole assumption of the presentation was assuming that someone was a Christian or a Muslim. I'm not applying caveats because that was at the very beginning of my presentation that you were not here for. Okay, next question.
what did you say? Something I caught with passing about you had a Christian and a non-Christian, and you as a Christian were obliged. Did I get this right? You're obliged to help the Christian in choice rather than the other one, the non-Christian. Is that what you're saying to me?
I am saying
brotherly love and all the rest.
May I apply?
Christian brother. Is that correct?
May I? So did everyone hear the question?
Say it again.
So the question was, the brother is asking, did he hear me correctly when I said that...
An atheist, not your brother.
Okay. Well, he's my brother in humanity.
I'm not an atheist, I'm an agnostic.
Okay. So let me address your question. Let me address your question. So for those that didn't hear the question was, did he hear me correctly? Did I say that you have a duty to help the Christian over the non-Christian?
Is that right?
So what I actually said was, if you had been listening, maybe you missed it, was that doing good to all people is an obligation in the Christian faith. But sometimes the reality of life means that there are contradictions in following that ethic. That you cannot do good to everyone all the time. So when such tensions exist, we Christians have a prism to put our love through. First duty is to God. Second duty, thank you. The second duty is to the church. The third duty is to your family, and the fourth duty is to everyone else. Now, hold on, absolutely, and it's something that you all do yourselves. So let's just give an example. Let's just give an example. An atheist heckler, an agnostic heckler.
So is your fourth heckler?
So fourth heckler. So let us just be clear. Let us just be clear. If there was a burning building and your mother was in that burning building and a stranger, I know who I would rescue. I would rescue my mother. Obviously, if I could.
At the same time.
If I could. But if I had to choose, I would choose my mother. And I don't think that I would be condemned for doing so. How would you feel if there were two children in a burning building and you could only save one of them and one of them was your child? Who would you save?
You have a problem.
You would save your own child.
That's different.
So the reality is, that in the practice of good works and love, we all use this kind of value judgment. The Christian faith also uses this value judgment. So this is the truth of our faith. Next question. Stop heckling, please. No one heckle. So next question, please.
Heckling for 35 years. Nobody's going to stop me.
All right. Let me ask you a question.
If there is a
Christian, you know, a Christian aggressor.
Brother, he was paid. Sorry, guys. He was quiet for both of you. Now pay him the same courtesy.
If there is a Christian aggressor who's attacking non-Christian, would you side with the Christian?
I'm so sorry. Say the question
If there is two people, you have a Christian aggressor who's attacking non-Christian. Would you side with the Christian, or would you side with that innocent person?
No, in this instance, the good that you would want to do is not to do something that is hateful to yourself. So if I was, I'm going to answer your question.
There is an aggression happening here.
Let me finish. Can I finish my answer? Thank you. So the point here is that you wouldn't do what is hateful to yourself. So if I was the innocent man being attacked by someone aggressively, then what is demanded is that I would be protected. So if I see a Christian aggressor attacking innocent people, my obligation is to restrain the Christian aggressor. Because by not restraining him, I am not helping him to be a better man, and I am not helping the innocent. However,
can you use excessive force?
However, if two people are being aggressive to one another, and one of them is a Christian, I would side with the Christian.
Oh.
Fair enough.
That's an interesting one.
So, next question.
I'll put both of them in jail.
Well, I might also do the same. Next question. Are you wanting to ask a question? Do you want to ask a question? Okay, that's not about the presentation.
We're not talking about Jesus.
So,
the PowerPoint.
the point with Lenin, I think your name's Lenin or Lenin or maybe Lenin. Yeah, Lenin. The point with our communist brother here is that he I know he is. I'm just making fun. He comes with one question. If you want to ask a question on the presentation, I'll talk about that. Okay, no. Anyone else want to ask a question?
What you're saying is not communism.
Anyone else want to ask a question, or are we all done?
So the Good Samaritan asks whether the man seeking help is a Christian or not a Christian.
Okay, so the brother quotes the Good Samaritan story. The Good Samaritan story falls precisely into the prism that I've given. It would be the fourth category. It's the parable. Yeah, absolutely, it's the parable. So the story of the Good Samaritan is what we do to our neighbour, and that is anyone who is in need, as we have the ability to help their
common sense. You don't need Christianity to tell you this.
So the brother makes a point. He says this is all common sense. You don't need Christianity to tell you to do this. Well, let's just ask this question. How many atheistic charities have been established in the UK? No, let's be clear. The atheistic community
tiny proportion
does nothing by comparison to the Christian community in terms of charity. And do you know why? By the government's own statistics. By the government's own statistics, the Salvation Army, which is just one group of Christians, does the second largest amount of charity work alone after the welfare state. Now, we do not see the atheistic community managing to match that. This is before I add on the charity work of all the other churches.
Less than 5% of charities.
The universal church on earth, the Christian community, does more charitable work than the UN. The fact of the matter is that we do need Christianity to remind us to be good to one another, because the atheist worldview, the worldview of the atheist is about self and about person. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year.
Oh, you believe in Christmas? You believe Jesus was born on 25th of December?
No, I don't believe he was born on the 25th of December. I celebrate the fact he was born on the 25th.
But it's a pagan day.
Happens to be the winter solstice.
It's a pagan day.
So,
just happens to be
you like the gifts.
Europe is celebrating.
Anyway, take care. I want to. What's your name, brother?
Hassan.
Hassan.
I'm Muslim, by the way.
I get away. I never would have guessed with the name.
Yes,
Hassan.
yes.
Merry Christmas, Hassan. This is my gift to you. The Gospel of Mark. I'm sure you've got a Bible already, but yeah. Thank you very much for your question. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Sorry, but you talk about objective morality, but then again, so like in the Bible itself, it both condones and it both supports and goes against slavery as well as murder. So when is it right or wrong to murder?
It now goes through that principle of doing that good to others that you would want to have done for yourself. So for example, it is wrong to murder unborn children because we would all want to be born, but it is right to kill ISIS fighters in Iraq who are murdering and killing in the Middle East.
But unless in the Bible they kill innocent children, so I mean, when is it right to kill innocent children?
In terms of the Old Testament, we Christians acknowledge the history of the Old Testament, and we even acknowledge that God commanded the killing of children in the Old Testament. However, we don't see that is something that is applicable to ourselves.
Yeah, but I mean, so like if a God is condoning murder, then how can he be an object?
Jesus as human is more on.
So when we talk about objective morality, we Christians believe objective morality is measured by love, and the love that we do goes through what we talked about: the love of God, the love of our brothers and sisters, the love of family, and the love of those in need. So this is our objective morality. Now, in that sense, if, for instance, someone was going to kill you, I would be obliged to defend you. Okay, so that sense, murder is wrong. However, if you were going to kill someone, so we'll use the example of someone going to kill you. If the only way that I could stop them from killing you was to kill them, then it would be morally right to kill them.
I know you are Christian. What is your denomination?
Just Christian. Peace be with you, and a very Merry Christmas.
See you again.
Anyway.
So then again, so like, so it's like, yeah.
Brother, I do want to talk to you. I want to. No, we can talk off camera. But don't go away, I want to talk to you.
So like, showing love to one person would be, it would almost require showing hate to someone else. So like, let's take the murder for example. Like, it's like you might be showing me love by
defending,
by killing that other person, but then you still be killing that other person just causing more hatred. So where does it end?
Line? Well, I mean, the thing is, as Christians, we're obliged to uphold justice. That is Christianity.
Justice is something that is so subjective. There's no. It's like would you see
absolutely, there is a contextualization to the practice of justice, and this is why I'm arguing that the Christian faith is universally applicable. Because if you simply come up with a law that says don't do this, well, then you immediately have to start coming up with exceptions to that rule. But if you come up with a rule that's an ethical principle, that is a guiding light, like a North Star, that can guide all your actions, whatever the context, then it's something that's universal. And therefore it is an objective reality.
Yeah, but so we talk about the same Christianity that basically condones homosexuality as much as...
No, I'm sorry. You might have heard that from the Islamic Dawah team, because they say that kind of rubbish a lot, but Christianity does not.
But then again, it says in the Bible, thou shalt not sleep with another man the same way you sleep with a woman.
Did you mean condemn homosexuality?
Buddha.
Zachariah, I'll talk to you another time.
Man's a liar, though.
Yeah.
He said that individual he's a liability to Christianity.
So Zachariah
he's a liability
wants
to Christianity. I'm telling you, he's a liability to Christianity.
Yeah. Zachariah wants to come with ad hominem.
Personal issues.
I think
people's personal lives.
Okay.
Have personal issues with people's lives.
Congratulations on your wedding. Congratulations on your wedding.
Issues in your lives.
I'm praying for your
wife. At the end of the day, no.
Because I don't want her to suffer like your previous two
wives.
No comment. I don't want her to suffer like your previous two wives.
I said no comment.
Just for the camera, what happened to your previous two wives?
I have no comments. You see,
he doesn't want to say. But when he was a Christian, Zachariah admitted.
This guy's a snake. You see how this guy's a snake? I come here to expose you. I come here to expose you.
Two wives.
I come here to expose you.
Two.
I come here to expose you.
And now
I come here to expose you. Why does Christianity say you're a liability? Why does Christianity say you're a liability?
I'm not here to debate
What's your pastor's name?
I'm not here to debate you.
What's your pastor's name said you're a liability?
And the reason
why is your pastor said you're a liability? Tell me that. Why did your pastor say Bob the Builder is a liability? Christianity said you're a liability because you are not knowledgeable of the Bible. I want to tell you that Isaiah 42 is the book Muhammad is in your Bible. Can you comply with that? I want to challenge you with Isaiah 42. You're going to run away? Are you going to run away? Allahu Akbar. Are you going to run away? Are you run away? Is you going to run away? Are you going to run away? Allahu Akbar! You're exposed, man.
We'll do just here. I just come in because, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just as I've mentioned here, as I've mentioned, when we come Speaker's Corner, we give da'wah. We don't debate for the sake of debating. This person, his name what? Bob the Builder, yeah? I watched some of his videos, and he clearly...
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen! COE! Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to Sky YG. I just listen to COE! Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to Sky Magic. Man, just listen to COE! Man, just listen to COE! Man, just listen to COE! If you see me in COE, consider over everything COE!